You are now listening to Contractor Talk with Richie Kidwell, the voice for the people. Join Richie alongside co-host property damage attorney Hans Kennon as they bring light to the taboo world of big insurance companies, exposing their tactics and fighting for justice. Hear stories from contractors across the state. Contractor Talk, here to protect homeowners and uncover the truth.
All right. We are live. Contractor Talk with Richie Kidwell every Monday night right here at 94.9 FM, 950 on the AM dial, The Answer. And if you're listening to us on streaming, you have that opportunity on every different streaming way that you can listen to us, whether iTunes. I don't have an Apple phone myself, so it would be Spotify.
You're the
anywhere
guy.
else. I know, am right? That guy that likes open source. I'm not a part of the cult. I can't do it. I'm sorry. But anyways.
That's why his texts never go through.
I had to start
I'm not green or blue or whatever you guys do in your community, whatever. I'm blue. If I was green, I would die, and I would rather die, apparently, so according to the song. But every Monday we have a new show for you, and then you hear it a couple days later or see us on YouTube. So if you want to like us and subscribe us and not miss a show there, you would be able to check out Hans' Dapper Attire of the Week. And at no point will you see the same attire on this man, Hans Kennon, at any point in any of our shows. So I beg you, I dare you, I implore you to go back and check out every show and check out his patterns. His closet is deep. So what's going on, Hans? How you doing, man?
Good. I can tell it's springtime in Florida because I got 6 emails today about hail in Florida.
Hell yeah, you did.
About that?
So I did lots of them from all the way up north, all the way down to Palm Bay.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot got like 5 yesterday, got 3 or 4 today from the hail alert people, and I'm like, springtime in Florida.
That's what that means. And so I did see some videos, and I did see some hail hitting the ground here in Central Florida, and I'm like, oh my gosh, look at that! And I zoom in, and it's just like little pebbles. So we didn't seem to get a lot of damage, but if you were in the affected zone, it's not a bad idea to get an inspection done in your home. 12 months goes by so fast. I mean, before you even know it, it's like, oh yeah, last year. It's like, whoa, wait, what? Last year I renewed my policy of insurance, and between those times, the importance of inspecting is very, very high, because if you miss that timing to make a claim, forever it is gone.
Oh, forever.
Yep.
1 year.
And don't we all in this room know about that? So it's important to get an inspection every year, again, because that's when not only our policies renew, but that's how long you have from the date of loss to report any damage that could have occurred from that storm that happened just last night. There was even a weird little storm that happened this afternoon here in Central Florida, and I was hunkered down inside watching the trees just go left and right, and minor little tree shrubbage when I got home in my front yard. So nothing to really report back on. I would have.
Well, I mean, like you say, you don't always know. That's one reason people report things so late. Is they go, oh, that's a wind today, and I saw we saw the circling clouds today over the city of Maitland and over by your place in Altamont, and those things can do something. So if you see something or don't see something, you should still reach out, because you want to document what's going on. So next time something does happen, you'll know if things are better or worse than how they were. But that's why people run into problems with the 12-month deadline under the statute. Is they go, what do they say every time they call me? They call Sterling like you. They go, I didn't know.
Right. I had no idea. I wish I would have talked to you sooner. Right. Is usually the response. And why I'm mentioning that is because Sterling Scott is here today. Welcome back, Sterling.
Thank you very much.
And this is a great topic today, because it's like you are the man to come to, and your company is the one to come to when you have suspected damage from some of these storms. I mean, how much do your inspections cost somebody?
They are free.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So not only do we do the free property inspection, my whole team, we've got 9+ public insurance adjusters, all licensed, and we have a trained eye to see the damage, whether it's hail, because there is a discrepancy on what is hail and what isn't hail, and we know how to distinguish the difference. But along with that free property inspection comes a free policy review. So
that's important,
right? So now we know, even if
these days it's very important.
If there's not any damage that we think would, warrant a claim, then we can say, hey, look, these are some shortfalls that we find in your policy, you should get them changed immediately. So if something does happen, you're in better shape with coverage.
Like an endorsement that doesn't say no wind, no hail.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. Exactly.
Now, a lot of times those are lumped together. Now, are those the same peril or different perils?
Wind and hail. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, they're different perils. What I think is funny, sometimes the insurance company will put hail down, or we'll put wind down, and they'll be like, "Well, this is a hail claim, not a wind claim." It's like, well, how do you get hail without wind? You know what I mean? But it's like, okay, next time, this happened a few times. So I've now said, if there's a hailstorm, just go ahead and put wind too, because the insurance company will sometimes try to say, well, you have to file a whole new claim because you only put hail. It's like, okay, well, hail doesn't exist without wind, really. I mean, in Florida it doesn't, right? Because it takes the wind to keep the rain circulating in the air for it to get cold enough to, compact. So
like the chicken. I mean, so what comes first, though? I mean, does the hail come first or the wind come first, or do you mark both perils as like, listen, there's wind damage, there's hail damage. So do you go wind/hail, or are you saying that there's two different incidents? Now I'm confused.
Right. They're two different perils, right? So if there is hail, you're going to want to put wind because they're almost one and the same, but they're two separate perils. The way I'd explain it is like, okay, if you live on a golf course, right, and each time a golf ball hits your roof, it's a separate claim, right? So you want to pick the golf ball hit that caused the most damage, right?
Sure.
But if you have a hailstorm, the hail damage itself is a separate peril from the wind. However, you can put both perils on your letter of representation, or if you're filing a claim on your own, which I wouldn't advise. I would advise getting an expert to help you with that. Just put both. Because now you're not in a situation where the carrier's going to be like, well, you didn't put wind, so we can't talk about wind.
I mean, I like this with adjusters often where they'll say, well, he reported as a hail claim. And I'll say, is my client an expert in meteorology? Does he know what I said? So I've said, it's really bad faith because you have an obligation under the policy to investigate any and all causes of loss that you find because you are the expert. They paid their premiums for your expertise. So you're telling me if my guy says wind because he doesn't know he had a hailstorm, he's got no hail coverage, or he says hail, he doesn't have any wind coverage. Right. You have an obligation to look at everything that might happen to that house, whether it's this data loss or a different data loss. That's really the obligation they have. And a lot of times, like Sterling said, they try to go, well, all your client said was hail. And I'm just like, it doesn't matter what he says. What he said is, I have a claim, I have a loss within the policy period, right? That's what it means. So you guys got to come out and look at it and try to figure it out, because under an HO3 policy, everything's covered unless it's excluded. So if it's excluded, you better tell me it's excluded or not, or you know what? Right. It's covered.
That's right.
Interestingly enough, on the way down here, I was on the phone with the office manager, another licensed public adjuster, and we signed on a denial because the homeowner said that it was rising groundwater, right, which is flood. But the funny thing is, it was actually a broken pipe. But the homeowner, when they filed the claim, they were like, "Oh, it's rising groundwater from a pipe." So they said flood.
Flooding, pulling water in my house right now.
Yeah, and I was like,
"Oh no!"
Most homeowners call a flood, or my house flooded because my washing machine broke. It has nothing to do with flood, and industry.
It makes it more dramatic. I mean,
right?
You feel like, oh my gosh, you were flooded.
Exactly.
You were like boating around in the inside of your home. There was that much water.
That's why I think they say, because the residents, the owners, they're like, my house flooded because it's more dramatic. That's exactly why. Yeah. But the fact of the matter is, it's a broken pipe. So when we were filing, and I was like, okay, so it's not rising groundwater. We're trying to reopen the claim, and they didn't want to reopen the claim because they're like, well, the homeowner said it was rising groundwater.
Wow.
But rising groundwater from a pipe. That's like, anyways, just to talk about hail and wind, or rising groundwater from a pipe or rain. It's like all these technicalities just further, exemplifies why you should get an expert involved, because they'll take the smallest excuse and deny you. Like this person, broken pipe, denial. Because they categorize it as flood. And now they're trying to tell us, well, you have to tell us, why it's not flood. It's like, because there was no flood.
Right. Well, when I opened my door, the water outside was not the same level as the water inside. That's why it wasn't a flood, because rising water maybe is always a flood. You open your door and you look outside and go, man, it's as deep outside as it is inside. That's a flood. Yeah. Anything else, not a flood.
Right.
Oh my goodness. And so with that, now you were talking about wind and hail. Now for the consumers that are listening, we're live on air right now, so we're not talking to just experts. We're talking to consumers alike. So that almost seems to me that that's expensive, because then that means seemingly to me as a consumer, it doesn't know that maybe now I have two deductibles, because now I'm confused. Now is it wind, is it hail, is it both? So. Can you tell me about that? The differences that I would expect then if I have wind and hail happening at the same time, or if I have lightning and then it burns down, and I have smoke damage, and then wind and water come in. It seems like a lot of things going on.
Actually, that's a very good question. No, you don't need. There's not two deductibles. It's basically, the way I would describe it is, and Hans, you can verify this.
Yeah, sure.
If your house is hit by lightning and it burns down, you have a lightning strike peril, all right? Because that's where it all originated. And the damage is going to be the same. I mean, you could put lightning/fire, but the date of the loss may have multiple perils as long as it happened at the same time. I would like to, isolate it to what actually caused it. Like, great example, my house was hit by lightning and then burnt down. I mean, I would put fire I put lightning/fire, but really you'd be okay with just lightning strike, and obviously there wouldn't be two deductibles because it was all the damage happened in that one time, which would be similar to hail and wind.
Right. Yeah, I would agree. It's really per occurrence. It's kind of, even though that's a term used under Section 2 for liability, per occurrence really is a better way to think of it. Or like I said, lightning and the sequela of lightning could be a bunch of things. Could be fire. It could just be a hole in your roof. Could be a lot of things. But it's really, what was that occurrence? The lightning struck, and what happened as a result of the lightning is an occurrence. They don't get to parse out, like Sterling said, think about lightning, then separate one for the fire, and a separate one for whatever else may have occurred. And then the PVC melted and the house flood. The firemen came and they filled the house full of water.
Right.
Those are all part of one occurrence.
Well, that's where I was
claims.
going with it, because you mentioned exclusions in the beginning. You say an HO3 policy is all-encompassing unless there's an exclusion. Well, now we're seeing all these caps and limitations and such. And so what if there was a $10,000 limited water damage endorsement, lightning strikes, catches on fire, the fire guy shows up and soaks a hole inside of the house, or a pipe breaks and it's flooded, quote unquote, now, water everywhere.
Are you the guy who wrote my law school exam? Is that's
I would think. I would fight and hope that I would be right, but the water exclusion would not apply, because
is it an exclusion or is it a limitation?
No, I agree. I think the water exclusion would not apply because it's not. That's not the peril.
Is it an endorsement then? Is that $10,000? Because then it's shoot. How do you say? Then it's triggered by water damage itself, because then it's like plumbing losses, right? I mean, those aren't excluded, but it seems like every plumbing loss that has this $10,000 limited water damage thing is now susceptible for $10,000 for the water.
If the plumbing loss, if the pipe breaks, the pipe break causes the damage, and you have the $10,000 cap. If you have a lightning, it causes fire, and and the house floods because of a disruption in plumbing. I believe the endorsement itself says this doesn't apply if there's another peril, I think in conjunction with, or if there's been a fire, if I remember correctly.
This is very, very interesting, because we've had multiple claims in the last month regarding not a pipe breakup or a pipe backup or pipe break, but rather a contractor comes in. For instance, this happened twice in the last 10 days. A septic tank was being serviced, and it was broken by the septic tank experts. So it wasn't a pipe. It was, you think the insurance company could subrogate it or something along those lines, but it wasn't a pipe break. It wasn't anything that I would think would be under the $10,000 cap, because you're talking about contractor neglect, right? Which is fine with liability or not. But the point is that the $10,000 cap shouldn't apply if a contractor comes in there and breaks my septic tank and it floods into my house.
Right. That should be like a liability claim.
But we're not finding very much luck with that. Like, looking to an attorney is probably one of the next steps,
Right.
but we have multiple situations that are very similar to that, and we're getting shoed in or cornered into the $10,000 cap.
So why not be able to then look at the contractor and say, give me your insurance and file a claim on their insurance
For the liability.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
professional liability.
now here's one of the problems, is that under a commercial general liability policy that your septic guy has, your contractor has, there's a your work exclusion under a case called J-Sub from like 20 years ago that says if you damage someone's home in the performance of your work duties, we don't cover it because we're not a guarantor of your work. Right?
Interesting.
So if they do a bad job of building your house, you can't sue the builder under their CGL policy because then the insurance company becomes a guarantor of them doing a good job. But when they're backing out of your driveway, if they knock over your mailbox, that covers that because that's not in the course and scope of the employment itself.
And I've done a lot of liability claims as a consultant. As not only do I own Trust Public Adjusting Group, but I also own an insurance consulting company which helps with liability and appraisals and all these other avenues. It's a messy situation to go after liability claims. It's much cleaner to go after your own first party insurance company, as you know.
Yeah.
But to me, like going back to, I still think that they could subrogate it. They
can subrogate back
the
against
liability,
against well, at least against the contractor himself.
Right.
Whether they cover that under coverage or not, your insurer still has the right to go back against the at fault party, like they would in an auto claim under proper property damage to the car, anything along those lines. But it is hard. Third party liability claims, and for two reasons. One of which is the third party liability carrier, the at fault party, has every obligation to pay as little as possible and treat you as poorly as possible to get it done.
Right.
Your insurer, under a breach of contract claim, has a duty of good faith and fair dealing with you, and an obligation to pay if something is owed. Well, I realize
I feel like it's backwards.
I realize it's theoretical, but that is an issue though. Is that your insurer has a contractual obligation to do right by you and do what they can to find coverage and pay the fair, reasonable rate, while the at-fault party says, "Oh, it wasn't us. It's not our damage, not our problem." All those things. So I agree. We all kind of chuckle at the table because we know it's not always that way. But that is theoretically and legally the difference in the obligations between those parties.
Mm-hmm. What about, do you think that you could get somewhere? Because if we're getting, cornered into the $10,000 cap, if a contractor comes in and breaks a pipe, to me, it would be outside of that $10,000 situation.
I haven't had that come up with exterior plumbing issues like that.
That's what I'm curious on. If what is that? Are these limited water damage? I'll call it an endorsement just because I don't know. And this is a good topic of conversation because I'm seeing it more and more in policies. One of my dad's friends has a current loss right now. And they sent him a copy of the policy. I said, well, somebody like a public adjuster and attorney is going to have to look at this. And when somebody did do a review, they said, well, you do have a $10,000 limited water cap, and they have mold, and you have $15,000 worth of mold. So my first question to them was, so does that mean your total that you can get out of that is going to be $25,000? What if the cost to fix, repair, put all the materials back supersedes the $25,000, but they have $500,000 in coverage A? So I'm scratching my head and going, well, if this is an HO3 policy and you're supposed to have this quote unquote full coverage, it seems to me if you have water damage that results in mold on this policy, it looks like that they're capped at $25,000. And I don't think he realizes that, and from his statement of saying, well, I thought I was covered. So you're telling me if it goes over 25,000, I'm screwed. And so that's my question to you is if that, what activates the endorsement, or is it a cap or a limitation? Yeah,
it's across the board. I mean, some of them are just, that's a standard, like Citizens, I think, is a standard. So you'd have to actually go out of your way and talk to your broker to get it increased. But,
so no matter what the peril created opening is? It's like
real quick. Here's one of them. Limited water damage coverage endorsement. It's an ISO form. This is called a True Florida form, which I'm honestly not as familiar with. But it says they provide coverage for a sudden and accidental direct physical loss to covered property by discharge or overflow of water or steam from within a plumbing, heating, air conditioning, or automatic fire protective sprinkler system, or from within a household appliance. I don't know. I'm not sure that doesn't sound a lot like
within a household appliance or sudden and accidental, and I think that's where this pressurized water lines fit into that category, because they're saying that's a sudden and accidental discharge, right, of water, and if it's hot water or if out of your hot water tank producing steam, that it would then open that peril of loss and limit you. Now you're in that $10,000 bucket.
See, well, I think when you say water or steam, I was in front of the 50 CA a couple months ago, and
seems like high humidity to me.
And a judge said, and I forget exactly how he put it, but words are defined by the company they keep, I think is what he said. Because that's how you determine the exclusion. If they say certain things and don't say others, then there's a reasonable assumption that wasn't implied.
Right.
If you talk about sinkhole or things like that, the words that are within those exclusions are the company that they keep, and you define them by like terms. So when it says discharge or overflow of water or steam, I'm just going to tell you, no one I know is going to go say, hey, that poop backing up into your house is either water or steam, right? I would be like, oh, we got some water in the house. Well, that's not water, my friend. So I would question all that. So
who flung poop?
Which again, we were talking earlier, really highlights the importance of our free property inspection and free policy review. Even if you don't have, or you don't think you have an issue, it's free. Let us look at your policy. Let us look at your roof. If there's hail, if there's not hail, insurance companies want to call it blistering. We want to call it hail. We know how to tell the difference, and we know the experts to get involved to, substantiate that difference.
That's right. And how do they get a hold of you in case they do want to submit their policy for a free review or schedule a free inspection with you and your company?
Yeah, on our website, it's www.trustpublicadjustinggroup.com or trustpublicadjusting.com. There's a form you can fill out. You can submit all your documents. Somebody typically calls within 24 hours. In fact, I had a message this morning that came in at 6 a.m. and I called them 6:15. It was for a fire loss, so I didn't really care what time it was. I was going to call them immediately. So you can also call the office number, which is 386-456-6885. That's 386-456-6885. trustpublicadjustinggroup.com. And
what's your email address in case somebody wanted to shoot you an email and say, look at this policy?
It's Sterling, STERLING, at tpagfl.com. That's T for trust, P for public, A for adjusting, G for group, FL.com. So
love it. Perfect.
Yes.
Sterling at thoseinitials.com.
Yes,
love it.
I know. I was tired of writing out Trust Public Adjusting Group or Trust Public Adjusting in my email, so I just did an acronym, but the
Great
letters
idea.
are tpagfl.com.
There you go. That makes us remember the whole name, Trust Public Adjusting Group.
Florida.
FL for Florida. Perfect. Love it.
Oh, here's one of the things we're talking about with this about water backup and discharge or overflow is this. The different version makes a point to say, however, direct loss by fire, explosion, or theft resulting from any of the above types of water loss is covered. So it makes a point to say
full
that
amount of things are covered. So from fire, lightning, everything's covered.
correct,
There's no
correct.
limitation.
So everything with fire, explosion, or theft resulting from any of the above, they cover that without this doesn't apply.
What about if you failed to turn off your bathtub and that overflows?
My sister-in-law did that very thing. They started filling up her tub, went downstairs to do something, lost track of time, overflowed, and they cover it because you can be negligent, you can't be intentional.
Right. So would that be limited under this limited water damage policy to $10,000?
I would say yes, just off the top of my head. But
Sudden and accidental.
Yeah.
Because that is a kind of what kills it.
All right. Well, we'll come back after giving some thanks to our sponsors. We'll come back to that question and a few more other topics here on Contractor Talk with Richie Kidwell. We'll be right back. All right, we're back live on Contractor Talk with Richie Kidwell, 94.9 FM, 950 on the AM dial, The Answer. And then over to you guys on anywhere you like to stream, Spotify, iTunes, and then on YouTube later on. Like, subscribe us there. ContractorTalkPodcast.com is how you find all the ways to listen to the show or watch the show, however you want to do it, and tune on in. If you want to check out the Sterling, the absolutely Sterling Scott here, then I implore you to go check out our YouTube page and check out more about the topics that we offer here on the show. It's not only for contractors, but for consumers alike. And today is one of those shows where it's if you have a policy of insurance, you're one of the 6.5 million folks that have a single family residential home that have an HO3 policy. That we're speaking to you. The rest of them are going to be folks that are living in a rental property, a condo. Now there are single family homes which don't have an HO3 policy or don't require one. So if you don't have a mortgage, it's not required to have an HO3 policy. If you own the home and then rent it out, then you have a DP3 policy, right? Am I saying it right, guys?
Yes,
that's right.
That's correct.
I love it. See, I've been listening, absorbing all this information from you guys so long, so be able to continue to bring it to consumers. So if you have an HO3 policy and you think you're covered, you think you're in good hands, now just look at one of these examples that I have. My dad's friend called him and says, hey, I have mold in my home and I have some water damage from it, and I'm looking at possibly getting a quote on fixing this. So they're asking a couple more questions, and I said, have you talked to a public adjuster yet? And the answer was no. I was waiting to talk to Sterling here about this today. So it's good timing that they came through this weekend. And I said, we'll have somebody reach out to you to talk to you about your policy, because that's a question. Is this covered? My initial thought was, oh my gosh, I hope he doesn't have one of these policies that are heavily limiting him to this recourse. Like, say, for instance, he has $500,000 in coverage A. So you're thinking, okay, if anything happens to my La Casa, I'm covered, right? Mm-hmm. That's your biggest asset. That's your biggest asset that you want to have insurance on. It's like a no-brainer if you're in your car, somebody sideswipes you, and you're like, oh, the damages supersede my deductible, so I'm going to file a claim. Nobody thinks twice about that. But now, because of all the noise within our Florida legislature, from the Office of Insurance Regulation, all of these scummy people then now coming together to enforce this fake crisis, right, that was in 2022, where all the prices of all the insurance companies went through the roof. Everybody got a 50%, 60%, 100% increase across the board when they didn't need it. It wasn't necessary. And we found out later in the papers that all these folks were overpaying their subsidiaries and then hitting the Office of Insurance Regulation up for all of these increases where they didn't need it. They're overpaying their administrative companies to help write their payroll or pay their payroll and write to adjust claims. Mail policies, other administrative tasks that they were overpaying them to do such. And there are other insurance company owners that own service companies that were overpaying their service company. Every time that there was a loss, there was a $25,000 tree bill or whatever. It wasn't even a tree. It was a plumbing loss. But still, the tree company got paid $25,000 that was owned by that insurance company president. So there are ways that they're overpaying their subsidiaries to keep that 4.5% profit margin so they can then go to Office of Insurance Regulation and say, I need an increase. And so we still have not seen any decreases in these premiums, and we've just closed our Florida legislative session last Friday.
Yep.
On the 13th. It was Friday the 13th when I closed. I can imagine how that was in Tallahassee. All those red cups.
Red cups, yes.
Running around the Capitol. The only day of the year that you can legally drink alcohol in the Florida State Capitol is at the very last day of Florida session. It's a party. It really is.
Is that real?
Oh, yeah. We should go there next year if you want to check out the party. There was nothing to celebrate this year. Nothing got any worse. It just continues to get worse out there by case law.
Which is odd, because not getting worse somehow seems like a success. And for me, you're like, whoo, consumers didn't get screwed any more this year.
Yeah, it seemed like ever since 2018, it's just been attacking the consumer. I've been in the industry for about 15 years, and everything was pretty, okay for the most part. I mean, insurance companies are difficult to get to pay, but the time it took to close out claims and the contractors involved, like everything seemed to be just moving in a better fashion than now. But 2018, they were going after the AOBs, and they finally got rid of them in 2022, I think it was.
May of 20.
Yeah, any policy at the end of 2023, so expires. Or was it
May,
January 2023? Yeah.
I just remember 2018 was when what was it? Michael hit the Panhandle, and then after that, I noticed a lot of laws started to change, and then.
Well, it's the policy of insurance, and then we have, the biggest douchebag that was in there, David Altmaier, was the head of the Office of Insurance Regulation, and the one behind all of the turmoil that we saw in the state of Florida. He literally lit the dumpster fire and then exited in 2022, 6 months prior to, 2 weeks before the law change that came out that would make him wait 6 years to become a lobbyist, right? Rather than 2 years, where the prior law was only 2-year holdback. So most of these folks, if they had a state office, they would leave their position, and they would still work for the lobbying company, but not involved in any of the things happening in that particular state in Florida, right? But they were part of a national company, and so instead of waiting 6 years to do business in Florida, he then, like I said, exited out of that, and that's exactly what happened. I think after the new year, is that there was his face on this national firm that he made employment to. That was his move up, right, to be a lobbyist for a national firm. And before that, the game is, hey, listen, and all of these the most powerful folks up there are State Farm, Citizens. Their representation is so high that, I mean, you think Florida Justice Association, the trial bar, has a lot of power, which I absolutely do, and especially did when I first got into this in 2014, a lot more power. And I say that not to downplay that. They are very powerful there. They know a lot of people. But the governor that came in, Governor DeSantis, and the power that he had to just take total full control is what really spun this thing out of control. Right, I voted for the guy twice, but in 2022, he was running for president. He took $100 million from the insurance lobby, right, which is a very powerful lobby. And I'll tell you, the lobby is for State Farm, the lobby is for Citizens. If you want anything to get done, they're the roadblock. Everything has to go through them. When my lobbyists set me meetings to say, I'm not going to tell you who I'm meeting you with, but this is the roadblock. So we get there, and they're like, oh, I didn't know we were going to meet, Richie today. And I said, I got you. And then and then we would talk, and they would say, yeah, State Farm's not going to allow this. Citizens not going to allow it. They're running Tallahassee. They're running the legislators. They have all the power in their PAC funds to go to each one of these important senators and representatives and say, we will feed your whatever, your growth by our PAC funds, right? We'll support you all the way through raising money. Don't worry about it. Our CFO prior to this Blaze guy, when he ran for the position, he got $3.5 million from the insurance companies, $20,000 from us, $3.5 million from the insurance company. So what do you think? Next thing you know, he's announcing that after a major storm or event, don't sign anything from a public adjuster, who they are the overseer of, the director of, as their locust. And then you're talking crap about your own people, and I'm like,
yeah, they license it. What about 30 days?
That's
cancel
crazy.
the contract.
Yeah,
how much work goes in the first 30 days?
Like a lot of it.
Until you submit it. There was a bill proposed that almost went through that said that if you're over the age of 65 and you sign a public adjusting agreement, you can cancel any time with no penalty. It's like, so you're going to go around and be like, wait, excuse me, sir, how old are you? Sorry, I have to ask you for that, but I'm not going to sign you up if you're 64 or 65 or older, only for 64 or below. But that's a bunch of crap. So you can tell that these bills, legislative bills, have been funded by the insurance lobby, and that's all we've seen out there, right? I mean, that's why I became an activist, because I was just shouting at the top of the mountain, this is so unfair. They're not hearing from the other side. So I was known for bringing up contractors, bussing up people to go and speak in front of the legislature and say, this is not true, right? I mean, this is the real story. At least there was another story up there and nobody else talking about it. Like the sinkhole is what happened. The sinkhole was the boogeyman before. In 2013, they made this big law change and said, okay, now it's very, very difficult to have this ground movement coverage now.
Catastrophic ground coverage
collapse
is what
right?
it's what it's calling out. Must
collapse.
be catastrophic ground collapse.
There's 4 categories.
Like the county has to come in and red tag the house. Like it has to be unsafe for occupancy. I mean, the standard is unbelievably high.
Right.
Yes.
So that was the boogeyman for insurance premiums going high. And then the next year it was water remediation guys, mold guys, and that kind of thing. And you're like, what? Wait, these contractors are the reasons why the premiums are going up? And then that's when the AOB came into play. And then until it got written out of legislation because of the $100 million that were given to our governor to run for president. Obviously, he didn't make it. But what happened to the money? Oh, that's right, because a week before all that stuff went through, he changed the law that says that he doesn't have to disclose any of his expenditures in his office or any of his cabinet on any of the expenses. He could blow it on whatever. We wouldn't know it. I mean, strippers and hookers, and we still wouldn't know it, right? And I have a funny off story I'll tell you offline about citizens actually being caught in that type of Wolf of Wall Street situation. We're talking about bills that were paid to marketing and advertising companies on one of Citizens' funded parties.
Wow.
And so that came out in the news. It's not from me. It actually was out in the news, very well known in Tallahassee, but nobody talks about it. And it's what's so funny. I'm like, why isn't anybody talking about these like $25,000, $50,000 marketing bills to these folks that bring in the strippers and the cocaine and all that other stuff? I mean, it's fun to talk about, right? We laugh about it, but it actually happened. It was funded by the state of Florida, by citizens, and still here we are going, okay, they're right, and they're still the biggest lobbying group there in Tallahassee. So, all right, let me take a step back.
It's hard to say. I mean, I think when they went back, when I thought DeSantis was going to come out for a second term, and his slogan was going to be "No blow, no hookers, just good government." Right. I think that's what he was looking to do if that was available to him on that. But what are you kidding?
Yeah, but the insurance paid for it. That's for sure. And because of that, we had these sweeping law changes, right? And not good for the consumer, but only good for his growth, right? And only good for insurance. And so we'll see once a big storm happens, if there's enough folks going up to Tallahassee saying things have to change, the pendulum needs to start swinging back to the consumer side. So, but I do want to talk about that limited water damage coverage example here as we see what is covered, and we'll talk about it here with these experts. I think it's perfect that we have a public adjuster, one of the best public adjusters in the state of Florida, and I believe you're doing other states as now. We'll talk a little bit more about your background here, but and then also Hans Kennon, board certified attorney, that we want to talk about more about coverage. Am I covered? Do I have the right policy? So we'll talk about that after the break. This is our short break. We'll be right back. Contractor Talk with Richie Kidwell. All right. We're back live on our final segment here, Contractor Talk with Richie Kidwell. Thanks for hanging out. If you are listening to us live on air, you can always give us a call here at 407-774-TALK. If you have a question, comment, you want to be on the radio, we can talk about it right here on the show, 407-774-TALK. And that's only Monday nights, 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. if you're listening to us on streaming or watching us on YouTube. Any Monday night, give us a call. Happy to have you on the show and answer your question. And so quickly, before we go into that other topic there, Sterling, so a friend of my dad's called in and over the weekend and says, hey, I have this situation, and he's not sure on the coverage that he's going to have. And it's somebody I'm going to give you their phone number for, try to get a little bit more information on them. But would that be a concern about being capped? He has a limited water damage, $10,000 limitation, and a $15,000 mold cap. Visible mold, got some damage around the air conditioning unit, and some mold around the diffusers in several of the rooms. And so it's already an uphill battle, being that they might not have noticed the discharge around the air conditioning system. They're just feeling the effects of feeling sick and ill from this and starting to see black mold. So that's tough, right? I mean, it's a lot of things working against them in these non-full coverage policies these days. Right. I mean, what I would do, what I ask my team to do is I know that there are limits, right? Always write the loss with the estimate as if there are no caps, because we need to have full accountability for all of the damage set forth. There are other parts of the policy that we know, like absorbing the deductible, that way they can get the full amount of the loss, even if there are going to be limitations that are applied. But
if we can see a way around it, if we inspect the property, because sometimes we can find other things that aren't just obvious, right? And I've been to inspections where they think that they have to file a claim for X, but we found Y that has overlapping damages, and Y now gives us the ability to tap into coverage A. So we may find a separate peril in our inspection, or we file a secondary one that now doubles from 25 to 50. So we will strategize a way, do a thorough inspection, make sure we're utilizing all the aspects of the policy, including absorbing the deductible so you don't get hit with one. Are there any other problems with the property? Maybe there's something else that we can dip into. But we will execute that claim to its fullest. And we won't let it die. We're not just going to, Trust Public Adjusting Group isn't a company that's just going to be like, oh, you have a $10,000 cap, game over. It's like, no, we're going to continue to work it. We're going to talk to attorneys like Hans and get their opinion. Is there a way around it? Look at our file. Our files are very complete and very thorough. So if we can get around it, or if there is a separate avenue for us to get more money for something that costs way more than $25,000, we will pursue that. So we won't leave a stone unturned, and that's why we've grown to the company we are, and we get the claims we get.
It starts with a free inspection first, right?
Yes.
It all starts with the inspection.
I was just going to say one thing we were talking about before, and one thing what Sterling talks about, looking for things beyond what the client thinks it is, becomes so important. We talked about that insureds kind of live in fear. They're terrified to utilize their policy, terrified to make a claim. What we're talking about offline is that every time you think you have damage and don't make a claim, it gives the insurer, when you do make a claim, the insurer comes on and goes, oh, this damage is from those prior claims you should have made.
Yes.
And say it all the time. They go, oh, pre-existing damage, prior, more than a year ago. Oh, if only you had made a claim for the earlier date, which is what they say, we would have paid you for that, but this one doesn't qualify.
Exactly. It's like they've squeezed the window so tight. It used to be 5 years you can file a claim. Then it was 3, then 2, and now obviously 1. And, the public has become scared to utilize a service that they are paying for. And it's mind-boggling to me when I go into the property and it's like, yeah, this damage maybe is only worth $30,000 or $50,000, or let's just say under $100,000, right? And so they're like, I'll fix it myself. It's like, then they put a Band-Aid on it and it just becomes a bigger issue. And now an under $100,000 issue becomes over $100,000 issue, and you've lost the ability to file the claim.
Yeah,
so now it's like, and by the way, even if you don't file the claim, it doesn't save you from your premiums going up.
No.
So that's huge. And like, public, please, realize that if you don't file a claim, it doesn't mean your premiums are going to stay low or stay where they are.
That's right. And one thing to make note of is that if you file a claim on a hurricane or act of God, which is a named storm, it doesn't count against you on your loss runs. Meaning, if you're going to go look for new insurance and they say, how many losses have you had in the last 3 years? You had a hurricane claim, you can say 0. You can omit that claim and say, well, I filed a hurricane claim. It doesn't count against me. But if you have a pipe claim, one of those type of claims, it will count, quote unquote, count against you, but it won't stop you from getting new insurance.
I mean, and what
Especially
point?
if you fix the problem.
Well,
Yes,
like I said, at what point, though, how much money do you want to put out of your own pocket that you can afford to put out? Sterling's talking about losses less than $100,000. If someone said to me today, hey, this loss is $90,000, you can either make a claim or not, I don't know how people go, I'll fix it myself. And you're like, it's a $90,000 job.
Right. Or
and you're going to come
I'll
in.
go get it financed because I don't want to rock the boat with my insurance company.
Right. Both of those things are bizarre because here's where I think the disconnect is. It is a $90,000 job, but because they don't want to rock the boat with the insurance company, they're going to try to get away with a $15,000 job. And then they're like, oh, I can afford $15,000
They
on
call
my
it a
own.
handyman.
Yes.
And then they have what in their eyes is a real loss. And again, the adjuster comes out and goes, did you have a prior loss here? Yeah, who fixed it?
Bingo.
I did myself. Well, you contributed to the loss. Now you failed to properly mitigate the damage. You have an obligation under your policy, mitigate the damage that is caused. You do a bad job of fixing your own house, they can hold it against you because you didn't do a good job.
And you didn't let them know.
Right.
So it's like everything that they think they're doing by not rocking the boat with the insurance company, it's like you're paying somebody that you're scared of to do something that you're paying them to do. Then you're going to pay out of pocket to get rid of the ability to use them.
It's wild, right? I mean, it's almost though that we've been forced, right, or we've been taught that we have to have insurance on our property. Right. And then so now because we're forced to do so, now it's a thing that it's like, okay, now let me go look at, let me go find that insurance. There was a guy that has a different house. He actually had it delivered to him near Tampa in Ybor City. And it's such a cool house too, man. It's so cool. But like he has a real claim, and it took him like so long to actually file the claim, but he hired us to go do a full engineering inspection and mold inspection and all that, and in a full exact made estimate, and gave it to him. I was like, all right, well, this is where you're going to be out of pocket or whichever. I'm not telling him what to do. It's just here's all your stuff. And he sat on it, and then now finally, but his whole thing was because he called me about 6 months later. He's like, hey man, can you update your reports and stuff like that? And I'm like, why? What's going on? He's like, well, I talked to a public adjuster. I think I'm gonna file a claim, and the whole reasoning why he didn't before that is because he was scared that he wasn't going to get renewed. He was scared because it took him so long to find this insurance. And even at the end of all of that, it was surplus lines insurance. I'm like, what the heck is going on?
It's like, I don't mean to be making fun of the public. It's like they've been conditioned, I think, so slowly, like frogs on a lily pad, and it's almost like they view insurance as a form of tax and not a service that they get to pick and choose. It's like if you fix your house and you fix it properly, you can actually end up shopping for your insurance carrier, and you might actually get it to go down. So, I mean, I have people that have paid the same carrier for decades upon decades upon decades, and their insurance premium keep going up and up and up, never filed a claim, right? Then it's like, so it doesn't matter if you file or don't file a claim, your premiums, it's not going to save you from your premiums going up. And I want to make that very clear to the public. It's like, it's not a tax. It's a service that you are paying for that you can utilize to fix your house properly. And then if you fix it properly, you can actually get your premiums to be lower.
Right.
So it's the exact opposite of how you've been trained to view the insurance world.
That's right. And it's so important to know what you have and what you have covered for, or what's in your insurance policy. I was going to ask you about this, Sterling. Have you heard of this new policy? I don't even know if I want to call it an endorsement or cap, but it's something in the policy that says if the loss occurred longer than 14 days ago, whether you known or not, or could have known, or if it was hidden or whatever, and all this other stuff, it's done. Don't even file the claim. And
that's an American integrity provision.
I think it's in Frontline too, isn't it?
I heard Frontline.
Yeah, I mean, about 10 years ago, American Integrity's policy said we won't pay for any loss that occurs, leaks, and seeps for more than 14 days.
Right. And then there was that big case.
There's the case that said they had to pay for days 1 through 13.
That's right.
I like that.
Which is what we all argued.
Because that overlaps, right? I mean, on what was there longer than 14.
So they said you pay for 13, and then they went back and changed their policy to say if it's more than 14 days, we don't cover it at all. Was their workaround from the case? All they said you pay days 1 through 13.
Isn't that crazy?
Right.
So
the way around it is
how do you know? I mean, how do you know the difference between 14 days and 2 months?
Exactly.
How do you know that? And I don't think that there's a real way to determine that, especially if it's hidden. And so what does that do for consumers when they have a leak behind their wall and it's a slow pinhole leak from a pressurized water line?
The policies used to all say that if the loss was hidden behind walls, floors, or ceilings, you were okay. All those policies said that, and they slowly have now changed for timing for a number of days.
Yeah, that's I can't say how important it is to vote. Going on that, I mean, you see that there's nobody at the wheel right now, right? I mean, we have David Altmaier still marching orders, still going strong through this new guy who was just appointed after
Altmaier resigned.
Yes, he resigned. They put this Blaze guy in there, and he's just doing the same thing. Office of Insurance Regulation is still rubber stamping any policy that is put in front of them that only betters the insurance company. It doesn't help the consumer, even if it's unconstitutional, even if it conflicts with statute, which Florida statute said if you have an HO3 policy in the Homeowner Bill of Rights, it says that you have the right to have replacement cost value in ordinance and law. And we see more and more restrictions on roof surface schedules. It's like, oh, if your roof is, halfway through its life expectancy, we're going to cover half of it. And you're like, no, statute says you cover the full thing. Like, what are you talking about? Like, I don't understand it.
I think Sterling, in our closing moment, Sterling had a thought I could tell was burning to say.
Yeah, well, hopefully we're driving home is, free property inspection, free policy reviews. None of these things that we're talking about should worry you about filing a claim or not filing a claim, whether the damage is hidden, whether you have a $10,000 cap or $15,000 cap. None of this stuff should be a concern of yours. What you should do is contact Trust Public Adjusting Group. The email I gave earlier is my personal email, sterling@tpagfl.com, but I have an easier one. It's claims@trustpublicadjusting.com. Claims@trustpublicadjusting.com. It goes to my entire staff too. So yeah, and my phone number is 386-456-6885. Trust Public Adjusting Group. Don't go about filing a claim on your own. Get some experts involved. Free advice.
Love that. Love that. And Hans, if they've now gotten to that level, if they've gotten a denial, how do they get a hold of you?
My personal cell phone is 407-782-0258, 407-782-0258. Hans at KennonLaw.com.
KennonLaw.com. I love that. All right, guys. We'll talk to you guys next week. Thanks. See you.